Hello beloved souls, thank you for tuning into the Spiritual Podcasts channel. This channel is all about good vibes, positive energy, and meaningful conversations. To keep this space welcoming for everyone, we kindly ask that comments stay respectful, kind, and in the spirit of the content shared here. We reserve the right to delete any comments that don't align with this intention. No hard feelings, just protecting the vibe. Thanks for being here and spreading the light. Please be cautious of anyone claiming to represent Spiritual Podcast and asking you for money, donations, or personal information. We will never ask you for money through comments, messages, or DMs. All official updates and content come only from this channel. If you see suspicious activity, please report it immediately. Stay safe and thank you for being part of our community. If you enjoy the video and its content, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. Please be kind to other viewers of the channel. The video is about to start.
Welcome to the deep dive. If you're looking for the shortest route to being truly well-informed, you are definitely in the right place.
Indeed.
Today, we are cracking open a really challenging stack of sources. They fundamentally redefine the word vice.
Yeah, it's not what most people think.
Exactly. We're not just talking about, the traditional chemical dependencies.
Right.
We're diving deep into the hidden architecture of, human will, personal responsibility, and what several of our sources spanning spiritual and psychological analysis actually call the modern epidemic of digital dependencies and, get this, moral indifference.
Indifference. That's a heavy one. And it's a necessary, I think, and profound shift in perspective we need to look at.
It seems so.
Our sources today, they include classical philosophy, modern psychology, spiritual texts. Quite a mix.
Right.
And they really force us to look at these daily habits we often just dismiss, harmless indulgences.
Scrolling on the phone, maybe.
Precisely. And recognize them as potentially something much more serious, like calculated flights from ourselves, from responsibility.
And that's really the core mission, isn't it, for this deep dive?
I think so.
To understand why radical, meaningful personal change feels overwhelmingly heavy, impossible sometimes.
Yeah, that inertia.
When the solution, according to these frankly surprisingly counterintuitive insights, it's rooted not in some massive effort,
No.
but in minimal, continuous, daily action.
Daily. That's the key.
And maybe even more importantly, addressing this fundamental, deep-seated privation in our lives. We need to unpack that word later.
Absolutely. Privation is central. But maybe to set the stage for such an expansive definition of vice, we should start with some ancient wisdom.
Good idea. Where do we begin?
Well, Socrates gave us a foundational concept. He said, "Idle is not only the one who does nothing, but also the one who could better employ his time."
Okay. So idleness isn't just laziness.
Not just lying on the couch, no. It instantly broadens the scope. It makes us think about non-chemical vices.
Right.
Idleness, in this view, is any squandered potential, any misuse of our time, our talents, our energy. That hour spent arguing online, maybe?
Ooh, okay. That sets a high bar. Okay, so let's unpack this feeling, this universal feeling we all share, I think.
That change is hard.
Yeah, we've all been there, right? The enthusiastic decision, this time I'm going to change, and then poof, failure.
The diet starts Monday. Always Monday.
Then Tuesday, then next month. Or, subscribing to that super demanding 6-month gym membership.
And you go twice.
Exactly. Or signing up for that intense online course, and the final module just sits there, forever untouched.
Guilty.
So when you ask people, is transformation easy? The overwhelming universal response is, it's burdensome. It feels fundamentally heavy.
And that perception itself, that's the first major psychological barrier we hit. Well, we're kind of trained, aren't we? By culture, by media, to believe that genuine transformation requires this dramatic, heroic, maybe even painful overhaul.
Right, the montage sequence in the movie.
Exactly. We look at the successful person and we assume they got there through one monumental effort.
Not the small steps.
Not the thousands of tiny invisible ones, day after day.
Which makes the answer from one of our key spiritual texts so, shocking.
The Book of Spirits, Kardec's work.
Yes. Question 909 asks, basically, could humans always overcome their evil inclinations, their negative tendencies, just by their own efforts?
And you'd expect a sort of qualified yes, right? If you tried really, really hard.
Exactly. But instead, the response just cuts right through all that noise. It says, yes, and often by very insignificant efforts.
Insignificant. That word just jumps out.
It really does, because it suggests the threshold for starting the work is incredibly low, almost ridiculously low.
But insignificant effort. That runs totally contrary to every self-help guru yelling at us to hustle harder.
Right. Right. How do we reconcile that? If the efforts are supposedly minimal, why does the inertia, that feeling of being stuck, feel so paralyzing?
That is the pivotal question, isn't it? If the efforts are insignificant, why don't we just do them?
Yeah.
And the text follows up with this really pointed observation. It says, what they lack is will.
Ouch.
Yeah. And it labels humanity, or at least those who don't make the effort, as lazy. Or, to use the original term, which carries this weight of like spiritual negligence.
Yeah.
Preguiçosos.
Preguiçosos, okay.
It's not saying we can't do the work. It's saying we're reluctant to start it because we demand a quick return on our investment. We want it now.
So we're lazy because we're basically looking for outsourced instant change. We want to bypass the whole process.
I think that's a good way to put it. We buy the magazine promising, lose the belly in 3 weeks.
Right.
Secretly hoping that just buying the solution, the diet pills, the expensive workout gear, will magically translate into the effort needed for the change.
We outsource our willpower to a product.
Or program. Exactly. And the problem lies in that expectation of some kind of external rescue. We want personal regeneration or even planetary regeneration to be this automatic outside force, like a spiritual singularity or something.
We expect to just, I don't know, sing a hymn, wait for the celestial aurora to show up.
Right. And bam, all problem solved.
Yeah.
But the spiritual sources are really clear on this. Regeneration, whether it's the world's or our own, it's not some external gift dropped in our lap.
It takes work.
It requires individual, daily, continuous, applied moral responsibility, which they summarize as living the living gospel of Jesus, meaning basically applying ethical principles practically, day in, day out.
Okay, so the key takeaway then is that this insignificant effort idea, it only actually works if it's daily. And it compounds.
Precisely. It has to be consistent. The human mind, it demands speed, right? We want immediate solutions for problems that we planted slowly, carefully over time.
That's a powerful point. The planting takes time, but we want the harvest tomorrow.
Think about the absurdity of our habit cycle sometimes. We eat poorly, maybe neglect our relationships, foster resentment for a whole year. Meticulously planting those seeds of ill health or bad habit.
Building the negative momentum.
Exactly. Then, January 1st hits, and we commit to this massive, totally unsustainable effort.
To giant resolution.
Yeah, and we expect instant weight loss, total habit reversal, complete emotional repair overnight.
It sounds ridiculous when you say it like that.
But we do it. The sources emphasize that sustained transformation is simply the summation of those insignificant daily efforts. It's the compounding effect.
So commit to the minimum daily.
Yes. If you commit to daily minimums, they compound exponentially over time.
Yeah.
But if you only commit to maximum traumatic effort,
We burn out. You fail.
instantly,
Yeah.
because they're unsustainable. It's maybe the 2 minutes of focused breathing instead of 30 minutes of scrolling that actually matters in the long run. Small, consistent steps.
So, the moment we accept that transformation needs this daily will, this consistent small effort, we have to look at what we're using that will to avoid.
Yes. The flip side.
Our sources really highlight what vices fundamentally are. There's a spiritual writer, Andre Louise.
From the Chico Xavier Psychographed works.
Right. In his text, No Moon, No Mare, he describes people with dependencies as attempting the impossible flight from themselves.
The impossible flight.
That's evocative, isn't it? They are actively and often quite successfully avoiding that difficult encounter with their own interiority, with what's really going on inside.
And that hits the central psychological hurdle. People actively fear the responsibility of regeneration work.
They fear looking in the mirror.
Absolutely. Vices are incredibly effective tools. They numb that inner voice. They distract us from looking within and admitting that, the core of the problem
Is us.
and therefore the power for change resides with us.
That fear of internal accountability, it naturally brings us to blame, doesn't it?
It's the easy way out.
If you take responsibility, you're accountable for finding the solution. But if you refuse responsibility,
You're free. Free to point fingers everywhere else.
convenient.
Very. And the Chinese philosopher Confucius summarized this dynamic centuries ago. So simple, yet profound.
What did he say?
He said the superior man attributes blame to himself. The inferior man attributes blame to others.
Wow. That's a stark distinction.
It's a profoundly simple diagnostic tool, isn't it? For assessing moral, psychological maturity, where do you typically place the blame?
And this insight feels really revelatory when you apply it to modern life, to conflict.
Absolutely.
Anytime someone attributes their difficulties, their unhappiness, their lack of personal growth or spiritual work to some external factor.
Like their spouse, their difficult father, that annoying coworker.
Or even the political system, the economy.
Right. Anytime the blame goes outward, the sources say it's an act of fundamental infantilization.
Infantilization, staying a child, basically.
It's the conscious or, more often, unconscious refusal to take ownership of one's existence, of one's response to external things.
Because we can't always control the external thing.
Exactly. But we can control our response. It's that flawed logic that says, oh, I'm trapped in this situation, and I can only change when they change.
But the sources remind us we're always in control of our inner landscape, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of the outer environment.
That's the core message of responsibility.
And the sources give this really memorable, almost chilling analogy. It connects this effort of refusal, this blaming, back to our earlier talk about discipline.
The discipline of destruction.
Yes. We think transformation requires this superhuman effort, right? But the sources argue, well, destruction requires discipline too.
It does. Think about the slow, gradual deterioration of a long-term marriage or relationship. It doesn't just suddenly happen one day.
No, it's built brick by negative brick.
Absolutely not sudden. Ending that relationship takes immense, persistent discipline.
Discipline. That sounds wrong.
But think about it. It requires the daily, focused effort of, say, looking at your partner with bitterness.
Okay.
Refusing to communicate openly. Giving that dismissive, ironic little smile.
Ouch. Yeah.
Constantly complaining about them to other people. Talking about them as if they're just furniture.
Yeah.
Not even there.
That takes energy. Daily energy.
This negative consistency, this daily decay.
Yeah.
It requires the same focused will that regeneration demands. It's just redirected towards ruin.
Wow. That is deeply insightful. And kind of disturbing.
It is.
If we can apply such immense focus and consistency to destroy something precious, why can't we redirect that same amount of focused energy toward building something positive?
That's the million-dollar question.
Why do we choose the path of least spiritual resistance, which ironically, as you said, still requires daily emotional effort just to maintain the bitterness, the negativity?
And this is where we can loop back to the psychoanalytic view. Freud saw vices often as a kind of voluntary prison.
Voluntary? Why voluntary?
Because, he argued, most people consciously or unconsciously avoid genuine freedom.
Avoid freedom. Why?
Because true freedom requires responsibility, the very thing they're fleeing from.
Ah.
So the mental prison of the vice, the addictive cycle, it's actually comfortable in a weird way.
How so?
Because it provides an easy, ready-made excuse for stagnation, for failure. I can't help it, I'm addicted, I can't change because of them.
So they trade the heavy burden of responsibility
For the soft shackles of predictable dependency. It's a known misery versus an unknown freedom.
Okay, so when we talk about vices as this flight from the hard reality of self-responsibility, the sources draw this really sharp line.
Between what they call earned reward and the chemical shortcut.
Right. And the contrast is really about psychological integration versus simple avoidance.
Exactly. Let's try and examine what that natural earned relaxation or euphoria actually feels like, physiologically.
Okay.
Imagine you've spent, I don't know, days or weeks planning some huge, complex event.
Like a major project at work or a conference.
Or maybe just navigating a really demanding personal schedule. And you do it, you execute it perfectly, the mission's accomplished.
Right. That feeling when it's finally over.
When you finally stop. You might be physically exhausted, sure, but you feel this profound integrated peace, a deep, lasting satisfaction. It settles in you.
That feeling of wholeness, like, I did that.
That's the just recompense, as the sources put it, for the effort you expended. It's your system basically confirming, yep, the work was worth it.
Okay, that makes sense.
And when you earn that reward physiologically, your brain produces its own natural opiates, things like endocannabinoids and endorphins.
The body's own reward system.
Precisely. You feel settled, you feel peace, and the brain's fundamental reward system gets reinforced correctly. You've successfully linked effort to satisfaction, a healthy loop.
But the chemical shortcut offers that same feeling, settled, euphoric, without the necessary work needed to actually earn it.
Exactly. Using substances, whether it's, say, marijuana for that artificial relaxation, or cocaine for instant euphoria, it completely bypasses that natural integrated system.
It's a cheat code.
It is. It allows you to feel the peace or the excitement that should be the consequence of dedicated moral, intellectual, or physical work. But you get it for free, instantly. No effort required.
And according to these sources, this chemically induced state,
Yeah.
it comes with a massive, inevitable cost.
It's a huge cost. It completely short-circuits the brain's natural ability to regulate pleasure and pain. And that leads to something much more damaging than just physical dependency.
What's the damage?
Well, the analogy often used is like you've maxed out the credit card on your internal reward system.
Uh-oh.
The account has to be paid eventually. What starts as maybe a search for well-being, high,
Yeah, feeling good.
eventually requires continuous use, not even for pleasure anymore, but simply, as one source puts it, to overcome the malaise that the absence of the drug provokes.
So you're not taking it to feel good, you're taking it to stop feeling bad.
Exactly. You're no longer fueling enjoyment, you're just feeding the vacuum, the deficit,
Yeah.
created by the absence of the drug itself. The baseline has shifted downwards.
And this has real-world consequences beyond just the cycle of addiction, right?
Oh, absolutely. The sources cite various medical studies linking chronic substance use, particularly cannabis, is mentioned to measurable cognitive slowness.
Even if people don't notice it themselves.
Well, that's the tricky part. Many highly intelligent people argue they use it responsibly, that it doesn't affect them, but they often fail to notice the fundamental deceleration, the slight slowing of their own reasoning processes over time. It's subtle, cumulative.
What else?
Moreover, there's the risk, and this is serious, of triggering latent psychological disorders.
Latent meaning they were already there, kind of dormant.
Exactly. For individuals who might be psychologically borderline or perhaps predisposed genetically to anxiety or psychosis, introducing potent chemicals can act like an irreversible switch.
Triggering things like
Conditions like schizophrenia or severe chronic paranoia. The sources are quite clear. The brain pays a heavy price for consistently circumventing the natural order of effort and reward.
Okay, so we have to apply this rigorous analysis now. This idea of flight from self, instant reward without effort.
To the most pervasive non-chemical vices dominating our modern landscape.
Yeah, you can't avoid it.
We are talking, of course, about the global epidemic of smartphone and social media dependency.
It's everywhere.
The sources highlight some pretty striking statistics, noting that in some countries, like Brazil is mentioned specifically, the average screen time is approaching 9 hours daily,
9 hours, that's almost a full working day.
every single day, devoted essentially to virtual life,
Wow. Okay, if we remember our opening discussion about discipline,
the discipline and destruction.
right, consider that level of dedication. 9 hours daily, with consistency, focused on what? Liking every photo, sending every funny video to the closed groups.
That takes focus. It's a commitment.
It is, and the sources argue you're engaged in this severe, dangerous virtualization of existence.
Virtualization, pulling away from the real.
Exactly. And it simultaneously, paradoxically, impoverishes the real. Your actual life gets thinner.
The virtual life becomes the priority. And the true physical world, with all its demands, its messy relationships,
Becomes secondary, background noise.
the purpose of life subtly shifts. From experiencing reality to curating the appearance of an ideal reality online.
There's a powerful anecdote in the sources that just captures this perfectly.
Which one is that?
A speaker recounts being at, like, a coastal hotel, watching a woman enter the swimming pool with her phone.
Okay. Red flag, maybe?
Maybe. She proceeded to spend, and he apparently timed it, a measured 25 minutes.
25 minutes doing what?
Selecting the perfect angle for a selfie, making sure the light was golden, hitting her skin just right, you know, the drill.
Oh, I know the drill.
Well,
The performance of leisure.
exactly. The entire focus was on the payoff, the perfect appearance of the experience for external consumption on social media.
Not the experience itself.
And here's the kicker, the shocking conclusion. She took the photo, and then she just left the pool
Without swimming.
without actually swimming. She successfully prioritized documenting the idea of relaxation and leisure over the actual physical experience of being present and enjoying the water.
Wow. That's something.
Meanwhile, this edited, curated perfection gets viewed by her friends back home.
We're probably feeling inadequate, comparing their messy reality.
Right. The sources say they often feel genuine aversion or deep inferiority, comparing their real lives to her flawless projection.
And that aversion you mentioned, that's crucial. Studies, including some research from a German university cited in the sources, They suggest that most people actually feel intense aversion to the excessive exhibition of life on social media.
We don't like seeing it, but we keep doing it.
It seems so. We continue to post, trapped in this weird cycle where we seek validation, but often just breed resentment or comparison anxiety in others, and maybe in ourselves too.
And fundamentally, why? Why is social media so sticky? The sources say it's simply easier than reality.
How so? Easier.
Because it's infinitely editable. If someone or something difficult pops up on our feed,
Scroll past.
Yeah.
Mute. Block. Gone.
exactly, we can hide what we don't want to see. We can avoid difficult conviviality, that messy, friction-filled reality of being physically present with imperfect people, having awkward conversations.
Dealing with real emotions in real time.
Yeah.
Much harder than crafting the perfect comment.
And this, the sources argue, is how material wealth has ironically led to affective privation, a lack of emotional connection.
Explain that link. Material wealth causing emotional lack.
Well, many of us, maybe our parents' generation, grew up in families that had little material wealth, relatively speaking.
Right, maybe one car, smaller houses.
But often, they maintained high affective unity.
Yeah.
There was connection. The example given is when the power went out.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Everyone gathered by candlelight, right? Told stories, played games, you were forced to connect.
No screens to escape to.
Exactly. Modern families, conversely, often have staggering material wealth. The nice cars, the overseas trips, the fancy schools.
All this stuff.
But very little effect, very little deep connection. And the tragedy is signaled, as one source puts it, when guests arrive at a family gathering.
And the first question is,
What's the Wi-Fi password?
ouch. Yeah. The connection isn't to the people in the room, it's to the network. And the people are almost seen as an obstacle to getting back to that network connection.
And this indulgence, this screen time, it has macro consequences too, right? Beyond the family unit.
Yes. The sources note a measurable correlation between excessive screen time globally and an actual decline in world average cognitive performance. Since roughly 2016, apparently.
Our collective brain power is waning because of screens.
That's the suggestion. Our intellectual capacity is measurably weakening as our digital consumption peaks.
Wow.
And this indulgence is set against a pretty challenging global context: competition.
How?
The sources contrast this kind of societal behavior with, for example, the explicit demands in places like China, where students are apparently mandated to study from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week,
That's intense.
with this stated national goal of global domination in tech, in AI. So the sources compel us to ask, if one society is committing 9 hours a day to distraction,
And another's committing 15 hours a day to focused study.
who is preparing more effectively for the future? And who might be actively, if unintentionally, constructing their own decline? It's a stark question.
It really is. But the ultimate digital vice, maybe it's not the scrolling itself.
What is it then?
It's the resulting vice of indifference.
Back to indifference.
Yes. It's the parent who uses the smartphone as a tool, basically a digital pacifier, to distract a child instead of providing dedicated, focused attention.
Well, it's comfortable, right? It's easy.
Peace and quiet.
So comfortable. An easy outsourced parenting strategy. But the sources are unequivocal.
Yeah.
It constitutes emotional abandonment, even if unintentional. Okay, this whole discussion about abandonment, indifference, it really forces us to look beyond just the manifestation of the vice, the behavior itself,
And go deeper.
and look straight to the root cause of dependency. Why does it take hold in the first place?
Right.
And for decades, our understanding of addiction was built on, well, a profound methodological flaw in some famous early research.
You're talking about the rat experiments.
Exactly. The initial model was so simple, almost too simple. A single rat
All alone.
placed in an isolated, completely barren cage. No stimulation, nothing. And it had only two choices: plain water or water laced with cocaine.
And what happened?
The isolated rat invariably always chose the cocaine, consumed it compulsively until death.
Chilling.
And this led to the chilling and very persistent conclusion that addiction was immediate, biological, maybe irreversible after even a single exposure. Cocaine was just inherently addictive.
But that wasn't the whole story.
Not at all. Then came the Canadian researcher, Bruce Alexander. And he revolutionized the field simply by recognizing the massive methodological bias.
The isolation.
The isolation itself, that was the critical, uncontrolled variable. He realized maybe the rat wasn't addicted to the drug per se,
But addicted to.
addicted to escaping its own despair. Its barren, isolated existence.
So what did Alexander do?
He created the now famous Rat Park.
Rat Park. Sounds better than the cage.
Much better. It was this large, enriched environment, filled with other rats, social connection, plus toys, tunnels, things to do, constant stimulation.
A rat paradise, relatively speaking.
Pretty much. And then he gave the rats in this environment, the social, connected, stimulating one, the exact same choice. Plain water or the cocaine water.
And the result.
Completely different.
Yeah.
The rat park rats consistently chose the normal water.
Really? They didn't even try the cocaine.
Oh, they might sample it occasionally, out of curiosity perhaps. But they overwhelmingly chose connection, community, activity over the chemical escape. They didn't need the escape.
Wow, so that research was revolutionary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it established this fundamental truth that really undermines the entire war on drugs mentality, in a way.
Which is?
Vices are not primarily about dependence. They are about privation.
Privation, there's that word again, meaning lack.
Yes, lack. Accents. Vices function as a compensation mechanism for a fundamental lack in one's life.
So the focus has to shift.
Dramatically.
Yeah.
From battling the addictive behavior itself to identifying and addressing the underlying absence, the privation. What is missing in this person's life that the vice is trying to fill?
Okay, let's break that down then. This underlying lack, this privation. Our sources actually detail 4 critical levels, right?
Yes, 4 main categories. It helps diagnose where our own compensatory vices might be rooted.
What's the first level?
First and most basic is physical or material privation.
Lack of.
Lack of basic necessities, food, shelter, physical safety. We have to acknowledge, while maybe most of our listeners don't face this daily, it is the most primal form of suffering and clearly a driver of destructive behavior, addiction, crime, globally.
Yeah.
You can't focus on self-actualization if you're starving.
Makes sense. What's second?
Second is social belonging or status. This is the lack of recognition, the feeling of not being important, not being valued, not feeling necessary within a crucial social group.
Like at school or work.
Or even within a spiritual community or your neighborhood group, that feeling of invisibility. The vice then compensates for that feeling, makes you feel something, even if it's negative attention.
Okay, third.
Third is affective privation. This is the big one for many, I think.
Lack of love, connection.
Lack of love, lack of dedicated connection, lack of deep family support. This is arguably the most common privation in the affluent Western world today. It's the silent crisis of modern families we touched on earlier.
The kids with everything but parental presence.
Exactly. And fourth
is spiritual privation.
Meaning.
The lack of a deeper, integrated sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, a moral compass guiding your life. It's that existential void that no amount of material possessions or fleeting pleasures can actually fill.
Okay, those 4 levels: material, social, affective, spiritual.
And this concept of privation, especially affective privation, provides the perfect answer to that crucial modern question. Why do middle-class youth, who seem to have every material advantage,
Right, the nice house, the good school, the vacations.
why do they still become addicted to drugs, alcohol, digital escape, self-harm?
Because they suffer profoundly from affective privation. Their parents often are addicted themselves. Maybe not to substances, but addicted to work.
Addicted to work. How?
Addicted to the work necessary to constantly increase the standard of living. Working longer and longer hours, buying more expensive cars, ensuring the kids attend the best school.
Sacrificing presence for provision.
Precisely. They consistently substitute objects and opportunities for actual personal presence.
So the parent is present materially, the fridge is full, tuition's paid,
Okay.
but they're absent effectively, emotionally distant, busy, stressed.
And the vacuum created by that lack of presence, that lack of genuine connection, it gets immediately and reliably filled by the compensating vice, whatever form it takes.
Self-harm, social media obsession, substance abuse. It rushes in to fill the void.
It makes so much sense when framed that way.
And if you need powerful, large-scale confirmation of this rat park hypothesis, look no further than the detailed studies from the Vietnam War.
Ah, yes. That's compelling data.
U.S. soldiers, often very young men, adolescents really, plunged into this state of profound total privation.
Danger, isolation, moral trauma.
Killing, seeing friends die. The worst possible environment. The study showed that up to 90% of them developed dependencies on drugs like cocaine, heroin, marijuana during their deployment.
90%. That's staggering. You'd expect a lifelong addiction crisis after the war.
You would, based on the old model. But here's the revolutionary finding: the moment they returned home.
Back to their families, schools, communities.
Back to the end of that profound privation. 90% of those soldiers simply stopped using drugs.
Without major medical intervention.
Largely without formal medical detox or long-term assistance. The return to community, to connection, apparently eliminated the psychological need for the chemical compensation for the vast majority. The privation ended, so the vice lost its power.
That is incredible evidence. It really shifts the focus from the substance to the circumstance.
And this concept of compensation, it even extends to behaviors we might normally consider virtuous, right?
Yes, the sources warn about this too. Even spiritual activities can become a vice.
How? Attending church or meditating seems good.
It is, inherently.
Yeah.
But it can become a vice if it's merely being used as a flight from genuine difficult responsibility elsewhere in your life.
Give me an example.
Okay, think of the person who insists on obsessive attendance at spiritual activities. They're at the temple, the church, the center, 7 nights a week. Everyone says, wow, so devoted.
Looks good on the surface.
But if this intense religious service is actually just a way to avoid dealing with a difficult partner at home, or a parent neglecting household duties or challenging conversations with their kids because, the work of God is more important.
I see.
Then the spiritual act itself is compensating. It's compensating for the lack of courage or willingness to face the real-world challenge right in front of them. The spiritual worker is using service as a comfortable escape hatch from messy reality.
So even good things can be vices if the motivation is avoidance.
Exactly. It always comes back to, what are you running from?
Okay, so this abandonment we've discussed, often unintentional, maybe reinforced by the easy distraction of digital vices, it has devastating consequences, especially for the younger generation.
The sources are quite stark about this. They talk about a significant increase in what they call carenza.
Carencia, like a deep neediness.
A deep, overwhelming sense of neediness, yes, alongside a profound loss of self-esteem.
And this emotional deficit, it's directly correlated with some tragic modern statistics we're seeing everywhere.
Increased rates of adolescent suicide, sadly, depression, panic disorders.
And the incredibly precocious medication of children, putting them on serious psychiatric drugs younger and younger.
Because these children feel unimportant, they lack that foundational affective connection from parents, often distracted or absent. They're left with this deep, pervasive sense of devalia. It's like a fundamental feeling of worthlessness. I don't matter.
And this chronic feeling of being unimportant, worthless, it leads to something the sources term affective dependency.
Which sounds bad.
It's truly tragic. This is the outcome.
What does affective dependency look like?
When individuals feel such inherent worthlessness, they will endure the most humiliating, degrading relationships.
Staying with people who treat them terribly.
Yes. Suffering trauma, scorn, persistent cheating, because they psychologically prefer to be, and this phrase is harsh but direct from the source, a dumping ground for others' affective waste, than to face the perceived terror, the dignity of their own solitude.
So the psychological calculation is, abuse is better than being totally alone and confirming my worthlessness.
That seems to be the twisted logic. The sources warn, pretty bluntly, that the person who doesn't truly love themselves cannot possibly convince others that they deserve to be loved.
So they just take whatever crumbs they can get, even if it's abuse.
Exactly. Even if it reinforces their feeling of worthlessness, it's a vicious cycle.
Okay, this feels heavy. We have to pivot back towards the solution here, because the problem of privation, especially effective privation in families, feels overwhelming.
Right. If the family is often the source of the privation, it must also be the source of the affection, the connection.
And the sources return powerfully right back to that idea of insignificant efforts. That's the antidote.
It's shockingly simple, isn't it? Yet it requires that fierce consistency we talked about earlier.
So what's the practical advice?
The core suggestion is boiled down to something like the 10% rule.
The 10% rule, okay.
The family has to actively generate focused affect to prevent or heal privation. So, suggestion 1, dedicate just 10% of the time you currently spend scrolling on your cell phone.
10%. That might only be 30 minutes for some people.
Yeah.
Maybe less.
Maybe. Dedicate that 10% to your child, giving them your undiluted, focused presence. No phone in hand, just being with them. The sources say your home will fundamentally change if you do that consistently.
Okay. That feels doable, small, insignificant almost.
And similarly, dedicate 10% of the time you spend looking at your screen before sleep.
That last hour in bed, scrolling.
Dedicate just 10% of that time to the person lying next to you.
Put the phone down.
Put the phone down. Ask a genuine question. Really listen to the answer. The sources insist your effective life, your relationship will change.
These are truly insignificant daily efforts in the grand scheme of things. But the compounding effect.
Over weeks, months, it could generate revolutionary relational change. It rebuilds the connection.
But the moral erosion seems to run deeper than just screen time, doesn't it?
It does. The sources discuss the severe consequence of parental indifference more broadly. The failure to actively moralize children, to teach them values, empathy, responsibility.
And the result?
A generation described, quite tragically, as heirs now of the virtue we lost. A generation built more by what they didn't have than what they did have in terms of moral guidance and genuine presence.
That's a devastating assessment.
There's a particularly painful anecdote shared in the sources to illustrate this kind of moral collapse.
Okay.
A young son asks his successful, well-off friend for a small sum of money, like 50 Rs, maybe $10 US.
To buy what?
To buy a sandwich. And he justifies asking his friend for this tiny amount by saying his sick, dying grandfather is nearby.
Right.
And this grandfather is the man who famously sacrificed his own education so that this boy's father could succeed and become wealthy. The patriarch is dying, and the grandson is begging a friend for sandwich money.
Wow. The disconnect. The lack of respect, of gratitude.
It's not just callousness, it's a profound failure of moral education. And the deep tragedy pointed out is that this son will likely face this same moral vacuum, the same lack of respect later in his own life, because he learned to value transient wants over fundamental dignity, responsibility, and gratitude. The cycle continues.
The poets often capture this stuff before the sociologists, don't they?
They really do. Renato Russo, the Brazilian rock icon, his lyrics are quoted, describing this modern condition of emotional scarcity. It seems like cocaine, but it's just sadness.
Just sadness.
Fueled, he writes, by the cansaço, that deep exhaustion of parents working nonstop to raise the material standard.
And the profound solitude of the children left behind in the quiet, affluent, but empty home.
And another reference, the great samba master Cartola, his song O Mundo é Moinho, the world is a mill.
What's the message there?
It's like this poetic, heartbreaking warning to the youth who prioritize transient emotional whims, fleeting romances, over wisdom and connection. He warns them explicitly. Pay attention. The world, this mill, it will inevitably grind up your mean dreams, your petty ambitions.
Grind them up.
And reduce illusions to dust, leading you straight into an abyss that you dug with your own feet. It's a call to wake up before it's too late.
Powerful imagery.
Yeah.
And the response to this widespread moral indulgence, this indifference, it can't be passive, can it? It needs active demonstration.
Exactly. There's that powerful story about Mahatma Gandhi's grandson, Arun.
Yes, I know this one. It's incredible.
As a child, Arun disobeyed his father, Gandhi's son. And his father, instead of just yelling or lecturing,
What did he do?
he made Arun drive the car home, while the father himself walked for 3 hours in the scorching sun beside the car.
3 hours, why?
Not primarily to punish Arun, but, as he explained later, to reflect on his own failure as a father in raising his son properly.
Wow. He took the responsibility himself.
It was this profound nonverbal education in accountability. It shifted the blame entirely back onto the teacher, the parent. The sources say Arun was infinitely more impacted by his father's demonstrated self-reflection and humility than any harsh lecture could ever have achieved. That's true discipline. That's real teaching.
Which brings us, I think, to the ultimate synthesis of all this material we've covered.
Which is?
The philosophical and intensely practical truth that discipline is freedom.
Discipline is freedom. That sounds paradoxical.
It does at first, but think about it. Only those who develop the capacity, the discipline, to consistently perform the daily, often insignificant actions.
The small things.
The actions necessary to build moral integrity, maintain connections, manage impulses, face responsibilities. Only they will eventually be truly free.
Free from what?
Free from the tyranny of their own addictions, their dependencies, their compulsions. Free from that constant exhausting flight from self. Free to actually be who they truly are, authentically.
So the discipline isn't restriction, it's the pathway to liberation.
Exactly. And the sources conclude by sort of defining the virtues we most need to prioritize in this specific era, facing these specific challenges.
What are they?
The required virtue for society's progress right now, they argue, is sharp intellectual activity. We need clear thinking. But the dominant vice we absolutely must combat is moral indifference. That tendency to just scroll past, to not get involved, to say, not my problem.
So we need to be smart, but also care.
And act on that care. Therefore, the courage to act becomes maybe the most necessary virtue of all right now. The sources frame it powerfully. Compassion is fortitude.
Compassion is fortitude, not just niceness.
Exactly. It's not enough to just possess kindness or goodness in your heart. That's passive. One must have the courage, the audacity, the fortitude to apply that kindness actively, to intervene against the moral tsunami, against the indifference.
As one source apparently noted, the influence of the bad often surpasses the influence of the good.
Why?
Because the good are often timid while the bad are audacious.
So we need brave goodness, audacious compassion.
Exactly. We need to become brave in our goodness. #tag outro.
Well, this has certainly been a necessary, and I think quite profound, deep dive.
It really has. We've taken the word vice and stretched it, redefined it as basically any organized flight from self, from responsibility.
And reminded ourselves, and hopefully you listening, that these vices, whether chemical or digital or even spiritual, they are solvable.
Right. Not by those massive Herculean January 1st overhauls that always fail.
No, but by continuous, seemingly insignificant daily efforts.
Once the root cause, that underlying privation, is properly identified and addressed.
And it seems the greatest regenerative work, the most urgent work maybe, that many of us can do today is restoring genuine affection and authentic connectivity right within our own family unit.
Mending the first part.
Exactly. We have to remember those silent, sometimes desperate voices of the people affected by our indifference, our busyness. How many times have teachers, doctors, spiritual workers heard a child or a young adult say something heartbreaking like, I wish someone would tell my father to just listen to me sometimes, or my mother, or my partner.
That plea for simple presence, undivided attention.
It's fundamental.
So that's really the practical challenge we want to leave you with today, isn't it?
I think so.
Imagine arriving home tonight and performing that revolutionary yet insignificant act.
What is it?
Disconnect the Wi-Fi for a bit, turn off the television, put the phone away, truly away, and simply say to your child or your spouse or your parents sincerely, I want to listen to you now. Tell me about your day. I have 15 focused minutes just for you.
Just 15 minutes. No distractions.
Can you imagine the impact? This act, done daily, consistently, it transforms the family from just a place where people consume things together into a genuine source of affection, of connection.
It creates that protective shield, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Against the moral tsunami, the indifference sweeping the world. It ensures that when the world outside inevitably fails them, disappoints them,
They know exactly where the clean, emotional water source is located. They know where to come home to.
So maybe the final thought is, focus not just on what's lacking or the problems you see in your family, but focus first on what effective bonds you have already built. What's already good, even if small. Acknowledge that.
And then commit those tiny, insignificant daily efforts to strengthen those specific bonds. Water the good seeds.
Exactly. Build on the positive.
Thank you for diving deep with us.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to sharing more with you soon. Until next time, take care and have a wonderful and blessed day.